Hello creation, I hope you're well. I've just written this, it's called We Can Be Guilty. And we certainly can, can't we? We can be guilty of repetition, over and over again. Stagnant and unwilling to venture forth, to see not the way out can become an unhealthy trend. We can be guilty of not seeking out the answers to the truth that the soul so desires. Some are afraid to venture within, but do so anyway, and this is to be admired. We can be guilty of pointing our finger towards those whom we say are to blame, but to always deny our own issues and look to fault in others really is truly lame. We can be guilty of not standing in our power, not loving ourselves enough to build our self-esteem, but in saying no, enough is enough, shall see your self-worth redeemed. We are guilty for our inactions when we see injustices, where the soul cries out, that's just not right. We can be guilty of burying our heads in the sand to put into play the out of sight, out of mind. We can be guilty of letting our emotions cloud our decisions to take action, and guilty of leaving it to the next one to put into play the act of the sanction. We can be guilty of not reaching others' expectations and can be accused of not doing our best. To be honest, I don't have a care for anyone else's expectations of me, and I would very much like them to give it a rest. It is true that there are those amongst us who would benefit from putting into practice that of which they preach, and I too must venture more within the self, if I am meant to truly teach. We can be guilty of procrastination, and again 'tis fueled by fear, yet fear is just an illusion that unfortunately some can hold so dear. We can be guilty of denying ourselves the right to love again, but to deny that of which we are made is nothing short of insane. We can be guilty of passing on our hates and prejudices to our children whom have trust in our guidance, but to build a soul upon hate and prejudice is like building a house upon a slate quarry siding and expecting no subsidence. We can be guilty of not answering the call of those in need, an intolerance for the immigrant who just wants to be free. We can be guilty of showing more concern when it comes to what others are getting. We can be guilty and accuse others of not doing their jobs, yet we are the ones unwilling to step forth and do the vetting. We can be guilty as the ones who make false promise to gain our trust, then once in office we see that all they promised as gold turned out to be nothing more than rust. We can be guilty of acting first without consequence, even given a thought. Then we will have to learn through our own sufferings and have to learn the most harshest of lessons taught. But most of all, we can be guilty of ignoring our higher self or intuition. Yet again, the illusion of fear is to blame, and while you feed low vibration with your energy, it will feed, because you gave it your permission. We can be guilty, can't we? We can be guilty. We can be guilty in not practicing what we preach. We can be guilty in not standing up when something's unjust, whether it's to us, be it to ourselves or not. You know, the amount of times, but then that can be a journey of life. The amount of times in my lifetime when people took advantage of my good nature, until eventually, well, it's not the way to do it, but sort of back then, people pick on you until you turn around and give them a belt. But that was as it was as a on where I lived. I'm so glad that I've learnt as much as I've learnt in this lifetime. I really am. And at the end of the day, I know I keep saying it in these videos, but it's love what matters above all else. It really is. And anybody who just, who lives in hate, I feel so sorry for you. I do. I'm sorry for what you've gone through. I'm sorry that you're having to live with that inside of you. I know what it's like to live with hate. I've lived with it. I hated myself for a long time. But that's no way to live, because you just attract more and more and more of that frequency. It's destructive. The amount of people who said to me, I bet you're surprised when you reached at my 50th birthday party. But you never thought you'd reach 50, did you? No, I didn't. No. I can't say I wanted to, the life I will live in. No, I didn't want to. Regardless of all the good stuff that people see, no one knows what's going off in people's hearts and minds and souls. No one. Yet we're so quick to judge. We can be guilty to judge others. How fucking hypocritical. Hypocrites. Judging from your ivory towers. How dare you? You've no idea what's going off in people's minds and hearts and souls. None. Too harsh. It can be too harsh, can life. But do you know what? It's love that matters. And if you're living in that hate, you can escape it. But you have to put the work in. You've got to be willing to change. If you're not willing to change, well, trust me, a life without love is not worth living. It is not. I know. It isn't. Not at all. It's love above all else that matters. And you all deserve love for what you've gone through, for what you're going through, for what you've had to endure, in the name of ascension, in the name of expansion. You know, how can the universe learn of itself if not that for every avenue to be explored? I know I've said it before, but it's true. If only. Isn't that wonderful? If only people could see. But then, this is just my perception. This is just my viewpoint. Who's to say that I'm right? There'll be some out there who'll be saying, well, no, you're not. Hate's the way forward. Right. Well, you shall meet your destructive end, without a doubt. And maybe that's what you've got to do in your lifetime. Maybe that's what your soul has to endure. To balance up the books. Because you might have been, maybe you've got karma to pay back. Who knows? It's all ifs and buts and maybes, isn't it? It's all perceptions, different perspectives. But at the end of it, it really is love that matters. So do yourselves a favour. Choose love, man. Choose love. Because that will see you progress. The other just holds you back. You stagnate. You fester. Wow. You live in misery. Who the fuck wants that? I wish you naught but love. And I mean it, all of you. Take care.